Welcome to Tutor Boot, where each week I'm joined by thought leaders to talk about news related to the world of work. We toot what we like and boot what we don't like. I'm your host, Stacey Nordwall, and I'm a world of work nerd with about 20 years experience in HR and ops, mostly building people functions from the ground up at early stage tech companies. I am joined today by Madison Butler. Welcome, Madison. I am so glad that you are here. For folks who don't know you, could you tell them a little bit about yourself?
Yeah, so my name is Madison, Maddie B, if you know me well. And I spend a lot of my time thinking about how we can make work suck less. I fundamentally believe that if work is something we have to do, and let's face it, most of us have to do it, it shouldn't be the worst thing we do every week. It shouldn't be our main topic in therapy. It shouldn't be the thing that we're dreading on Sunday night. And so I work with companies to essentially think about what that means. How do we make it so people, I can't say like, yes, every day at work is going to be like sunshine and butterflies and you're going to love it. But it shouldn't be something that ignites your nervous system either.
Right. And it's funny the fact that you said like it shouldn't be something we talk about in therapy. I'm like, oh. So I know so many times where myself or others have said that they have talked about a workplace in therapy or a manager.
Oh, yeah.
Uh, so for folks who are used to the normal format, we're doing something a little bit different today. This is going to be the first ever like book club edition of Tutor Boot. So I'm grateful that you have joined to talk about your new book. For a little background, for folks, I followed Madison on LinkedIn for probably 4 or 5 years now. And I was thinking back on that. When I first started seeing her posts, what stood out to me was she's one of the few folks I remember who at the time wasn't kind of playing the quote unquote LinkedIn game. And it wasn't like, here's 5 things I learned from getting a flat tire that will help you increase your sales, like that kind of spin on everything. And it was her consistently showing up as herself, whatever that might have looked like. And that felt like something really different from what I was used to seeing on LinkedIn in particular at that time. So I'm excited to talk about the book. It's called Let Them See You: Empowering Change Through Authenticity. This book covers so much and it digs deep into what it actually means to be authentic at work, and how to be a leader who creates the space for people to be their authentic, messy selves. So today we're going to be digging into all of that, talking about what does it look like to show up as yourself, particularly in workplaces that don't always make room for that. How do you stay authentic and human in systems that maybe weren't built for you? And how do leaders create space for authenticity without asking people to kind of perform it or perform professionalism? So we're going to dig in. Um, like I said, I don't remember exactly when I started following you. I feel like it was at kind of a critical point for me, maybe 5 or so years ago, where I had been, it was around the time either I was definitely burnt out. I will say that. I may have been already laid off or like that was on the horizon for me. Um, and I was really contemplating my identity to work and feeling like I had made work way too much of my identity. And so when I was seeing your post, I was like, okay, here's someone who's doing this differently, who's thinking about this differently, showing up in a different way. And so for folks who aren't as familiar with you or haven't necessarily followed along, what was the journey that kind of brought you to showing up in that way?
So I think it's kind of twofold. I think so for anyone who doesn't know me, I'm biracial. My mom is white, my dad is black. And growing up, that left me with a little bit of an identity crisis. And so I grew up really trying to lean into the whiteness because I thought that was the way that I stayed relatable, the way that I stayed popular, the way that I had community. Because at the end of the day, so much of what we crave as humans is community. It's
Mm,
connection. And in my early 20s, like at the peak of like when community is super important, you're coming into your identity a little bit, like you're learning about taxes, all of the complicated stuff. I dated this really terrible person, like terrible, terrible person. And I think a lot of us have done that, but our relationship was deeply abusive, like from a physical, mental, emotional, financial, but like he was super racist. Like that's really the juxtaposition is he was very, very racist.
mm,
When I left in the middle of the night. I took all my stuff, or well, enough stuff to get me through and my dogs. And that really isn't the moral of the story. The moral of the story is Madison doesn't know how to use the internet. Um, when I got home, I had posted this video of him because I had been keeping like a if I go missing file because it was that serious.
mm,
I posted this video where he was like just berating me racially. And it was really to show that like there are people outside who walk around very normal, but this is who they are. This is how they behave
Mm,
at home.
hmm.
And again, back to Madison does not know how to use the internet. At least not then. I didn't. I woke up the next day and my friends were like, "Have you seen your video?" And I had just posted like to my Facebook. Um,
Okay.
and all of a sudden it was on BuzzFeed. My mom was calling me and they were like, "They're talking about your breakup on XM radio," when people still listen to XM radio. And all of a sudden it was just everywhere.
Yeah.
And the moral of the story was no matter how hard I tried to run from my identity, like the only thing people were talking about was that I was Black. And
Mm,
so this giant part of me that I thought was detrimental to me, that I was running from, was literally the only thing people knew about me. And it really forced me to have this very public reckoning with why I was so hell-bent on showing up the way people wanted me to, or I thought
mm,
people wanted me to, versus how I needed to show up for myself. And so that was kind of like a personal pivot for me, but I was still very much showing up that way at work, right? Like I was still like putting on my little loafers and straightening my hair, and I didn't have blue hair, and I had a little phone voice, and I sounded like this. And I had this like interview back in Austin when I lived there. And they were like, "Oh my God, we love you so much. We can't wait to work with you. We can't wait to send you an offer letter." And I was like, "But," and they were like, "But we need you to wear a skirt. We need you to wear heels. We need you to control your hair. We need you to cover your tattoos, take out your nose rings." And I just like had this. And of course, in the moment, I was like, "Oh my God, like, thank you so much. I can't like wait to get." This is like still in the time of in-person interviews. So like we're face to face.
yeah.
But I like got in my car, I was like seething. Like I could feel how angry I was because I just had this revelation that how often do people want to work with us because of what we can do, but not because of who we are, without realizing the reason I'm good at what I do is because of who I am.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
I was like, I like went home and I was like, how can I make sure that no one asks me to change my hair ever again? And I went home and I was like, okay, everyone's gonna know me as the blue-haired recruiter. And like again, this is like a decade ago or something. And I just like was like, I'm not going to do it anymore. Like, I am not going to do it anymore. And so it was obviously not like an overnight thing. I just really forced myself to make myself uncomfortable,
Hmm.
and make other people uncomfortable, right? Like, just showing up as who I am has made me so good at what I do.
Hmm.
And I think a lot of my career growth has been because of that. Now, of course, like it comes with its hangups, right? Like, not everyone's about it. But I also feel like for me, that's been a gift because it
Hmm.
means the wrong people stay pretty far away from me. And I'm cool with
Yeah.
that.
Yeah. Yeah. I think one of the things that I think I was really struck with in that story in the book was because I felt that somewhat myself is how your identity in some ways it come like you kind of know it, but it gets unlocked by some experience or some circumstance where you're like, wait, that's not me. Like I feel in it's almost formed in like rebellion to certain things or when things kind of are in opposition to like what you know within yourself. So I think for me that was one of the things I think each person will read this book and will resonate with different parts of it and will get different things from it. And I think the identity piece and how even, I'm approaching my 50s and I still feel like I'm going back and forth trying to figure out my identity in relation to work, in relation to where I'm living, all of these different things. So I found that like particularly interesting and exciting to think about. So, kind of along those lines, one of the things that you talk about is that you had kind of created this personal brand, like I don't know how we want to say it, persona, like not necessarily persona, it's you, but like the kind of external what you're sharing with people in the world. And that, you had been intentional about curating that in a way, especially after some of these early experiences of like, okay, I'm going to share these bits of my personal life. And this is what, people are going to end up knowing me for. And that at some point you kind of started to enter into a relationship with someone where it was like, wait a second, this kind of doesn't fit the story anymore. And how do I feel about that? And how do I talk about that? And I think, particularly in the world of social media, everyone's focused on creating a personal brand, creating a niche. And there's this push, you have to be authentic. And like, what does that mean? What does that look like? Especially, for me, when I think about it, I've thought like, well, if I focus on this one thing, what if I don't want to do the thing that I'm known for anymore? What if
Yep.
like I'm more than that thing? How do I share personally and authentically, but also maintain my boundaries because you put something out on social media and people feel like they are then entitled to be in your business about it and tell you all their opinions about it.
Like, what do
So
you mean?
so I think, yes, I'd love for you to share, given your experience, these are things that you've kind of dealt with, navigated. How did you navigate staying true to your core, but also allowing for yourself to change and evolve? And how did you kind of work through, I guess, talking about this with this following that you had created?
Um, so I think it was trial and error, right? But then I just got to this point where I was like, I have to do this for me. And so the way I like, even when I'm coaching people on brand stuff, like you have to write the content you want to consume. Like take every other voice out of
Mhm.
it,
Yeah.
write the content you want to read. And that means make it relatable to you. And if it's not relatable to others, then it's not their content, and that's fine.
Yeah.
Um, and I think the thing that I really started to understand about myself, at least in the way that I create content, is my life is very much like a pie chart. Sometimes it's really worky and sometimes it's really personal.
Mm.
Um, like this year for me was like a really personal year. I shared a lot of personal stuff. I went through like the weird, like 2025 has like whooped my collective butt, right? Like in January, my grandfather and my dad had a heart attack in the same week. Like, guys, plan
Whoa.
plan better, please. I got laid off.
Mm.
I was dating someone with a drug problem and we went through a pretty ugly breakup. So like it's been pretty wild over here. And so it's funny because I shared some of this on my TikTok and someone was like, "Why are you sharing this on your person on your work TikTok?" And I was like, "Well, because like all of these things impact me professionally, right?
Yeah.
Like show up day to day is like heavily impacted by my outside life."
Hmm.
And for me, that's what it is. It's a pie chart. Like some days you're going to get really corporate Maddie, and some days you're going to get like I'm crashing out Maddie, and some days you're going to get like I'm dating someone new, and I'm like so happy about it, Maddie. And that's like the Maddie the world is getting right now. And it's funny because he and I went away to Canada like I don't know, like a month and a half ago or something. And someone was like, "Why are you traveling and dating instead of promoting your book?" And I was like, "Because I want to." Like I literally don't owe you an explanation further than that.
Yeah.
Um, because I want to. And that is
Yeah.
like as simple as it is. And so when I tell people when they write their content and people come back at you with information or opinions or suggestions, oh my God, my dogs are running. Because life is lifing. Um, you just get to say like, because I did, because I want to, because I am an adult who makes decisions for myself. And
Yeah.
unless you are paying a bill,
Yeah.
I don't care. And I think
Yeah.
that was really hard for me because originally, like, you really want to lean into what people like, right? Because the algorithm tells you to do so.
Yeah.
Um, but for me, that's not fulfilling, right? To like just to like lean towards the algorithm gods or talk about what's trending or popular or what makes people comfortable doesn't feel authentic to me at all. What feels the most authentic to me is like just being honest about like life is really messy and it doesn't get less messy regardless of like how popular you are or how many followers you have. Like life is still very messy over here.
Yeah. I don't know. I was about to say especially in 2025, but I don't know, especially in every year. It's it's life is always doing something.
I'm so tired of unprecedented events.
Yeah, yeah, exactly. Right. Yeah, there is no normal anymore. There are no unprecedented events. It's chaos. Um,
Every every day is
yeah,
chaos.
every day. Yeah. So I wanted to, one of the things, so I said that I felt like people were going to there would be different parts of the book that would resonate with people in different ways. Obviously, I think everyone should read it because you'll find the things that resonate with you. I'm obviously just picking out the things that resonated with me. So I want to talk about some of those parts. There was a section that this one really, really resonated with me where you say, our lives become a revolving checklist. You'll realize that the things you've been chasing all along, the next promotion, the bigger paycheck, the dream job, wasn't going to be enough. And what we're really doing is ignoring the needs of our bodies for the sake of systems that have no stake in our well being. And as someone who, was pushed to be a high achiever, started working during kind of peak rise and grind era, has definitely experienced burnout. Like I will tell you, there was a period of my life where I will tell you I was a husk of a person. Uh, all of those things really hit me very hard, those statements. So what I was wondering, like, was there a particular moment where you had the realization that you were doing those things, chasing, in checklist territory, chasing the things that you didn't really value, and how did you kind of start to change and heal from being in that space?
Yes. So I think when I realized it, I was like, so fine, dude. There's a New York Times article about how I like a little treat. And I do in fact like a little treat. But I got a little too treaty at some point,
Mm,
and I realized what I was doing was I was shopping to like find dopamine. I was like
mm,
shopping for the serotonin surge. And I've got some really nice things. I've got some really nice bags. And it's funny because I would like get this like surge of like anxiety beforehand and then
mm.
like this surge of like excitement afterwards.
Yeah.
And I also like now I can look back and look at like, okay, what was going on in my life at that time? I was in a relationship that I wasn't super happy in. I was in a job I wasn't super happy in. And so I was looking for moments that sparked joy.
Mm,
And it's also at the same time that I started going to the gym really heavily, where I kind of transitioned. And so like I was using the gym in that way. Like I was using the gym now for that, which like much better for my bank account, overwhelming. Um, but it taught me to like really start thinking about why am I doing things? Why do I want things? Is it
mhm,
because society tells me I want them? Number one. Am I doing it because it is going to boost my serotonin? Two. Or am I doing it to avoid feeling what I'm actually feeling? And this is like a cover. Like I
mhm.
think we do that with social media. We do that with shopping. We do that with little treats. Uh,
Yeah.
but then it's like the goalpost in terms of success, right? Like it feels like it always moves. It's something that I think about all the time. Like one of my like big brain questions was like, do I think Jeff Bezos was always a bad guy? Or like, did money get you there? Because
Mm,
no matter how much you have, you want more. And
yeah.
like it's very similar for the regular person, right? Like you say, okay, for me, it was like when I was, 25. The minute I make six figures, I'll be good. I'll be happy. Like, girl, cost of living, please. It
Yeah.
goes. Um, but then it was like every time I got to a marker, I couldn't just be happy in that moment.
Hmm.
I had to think about, okay, how do I get to the next thing? How do I run to the next thing? It's kind of
Yeah.
like when I bought my house, I loved it. And then I started seeing like people's TikToks of their like nice, neat beige houses. And I was like, I want a different house.
Yeah.
You just do that forever. And then you don't ever get to experience now. You don't ever get to experience being present. You don't get to just like be happy for who you are today in this moment. And I just didn't want to be that person anymore where I didn't get to just be happy now.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, that a lot of that resonated with me especially in terms of, well, even, yeah, actually, it's funny that you mentioned the house. I'm like, oh, yeah, I got this house. And then I'm like, but what if I had gotten a nicer house?
How do you know?
Um, but same thing with kind of work where I kept pushing myself, and I didn't even necessarily know what I wanted, but I know it's like I had to keep going up the ladder and pushing more. And there was a point too, especially because of burnout, where I was like, I don't even think I want that. Like, why was I doing it? It wasn't really that I had ever stepped back and said, like, this is the thing that I want and the reasons that I want it. It was just that I felt like I had to keep pushing. And by the time I got something, I felt like, oh, I should have already had that. I've worked so hard. Like, forget this. Didn't ever really take a step back to enjoy it or think about the accomplishment. It was like, whatever. What's the next thing? And I feel like we do that so often where that what you're saying about this kind of revolving checklist, I was like, yeah. I have felt the revolving checklist. Um, the other thing I was thinking about that I also really resonated with, you have a list of situations that folks are likely to have experienced if they have worked under fear-based leadership. And that's one of the other things where I looked through this list and I was like, yeah, I have experienced a lot of these in my career. And I know how detrimental some of those things have been for me. And I think like you don't always stop to acknowledge that, like how much you kind of carry those things through, how much that affects, your self-confidence or whatever it is. Um, and that this fear-based leadership, you say, really it persists because that's what's rewarded, and it's because of power and money. And then I think about the times that we're in now, which are very about, I mean, it's always about power and money, but it feels like even more about power and money now. That those are really the things that people are focused on. Um, so in these times where it is pretty scary and volatile as an employee, where it feels like things are very focused on who has the power, who has the money, how, like, is there any advice that you have for folks, employees who are navigating a fear-based leadership situation, where they may feel trapped and maybe they can't move to a different job?
So I'll be the first person to say, like, I am never the person that's just like, leave your job because not realistic. And even in a good job market, it's not a realistic scenario, right?
Yeah.
In this job market,
No, I know.
so for me, it really is about how you care for yourself and how you separate yourself from that behavior. I think for me, it has taken a very long time. And this sounds terrible, and so I'm gonna caveat it after. Care less. You have to care less. And I don't mean like care less about your work, care less about your skill, your craft, but you have to care less about companies that do not care about you.
Yeah.
And you have to separate your identity, your worth from that. And I think that is incredibly hard in a world that we exist within capitalism, right? And so
Yeah.
many of us are told that our worth is tied to our title, the cool company we work for, the top 10 school we went to, what we make, the house we live in. Separate your worth from all of that because you will be woefully disappointed every time.
Yeah.
Because you can give all of the loyalty, all of the care to a company, and that will not stop them from laying you off.
Yeah.
That will not stop them from giving you a crappy package. That will not stop them from treating you terribly.
Yeah.
So I think for me, the thing that has been best for my nervous system is to say, like, this is a job that I go to and I do work. I am not work.
Yeah.
I do work here, but this is not my whole life. And, one of the things I try to explain to my clients is we are sold this like really crappy idea that work is the center of all that we do. When in
Hmm.
actuality, the reason so many of us work is because we have bills. If I
Yeah.
could do the same thing, right? Like if I could pay my bills and not work, let me tell you, I would be butt naked on a boat somewhere. But I'm
Yeah.
not. Work is required of me. And so it is not the center of our universe. It is actually the thing that sustains our universe. The
Yeah.
reason we go to work is because we want to spend time with our families. We want to travel. We want to experience life. We want to pay our bills. And so the moment that we start to realize that, the better the environment we can create for people because it allows them to be human first. But
Yeah.
so many companies want us to believe that like they're everything to us,
Yeah.
but we are nothing to them. That's a terrible trade-off, right? It's a terrible
Yeah.
trade-off. And so for me, that has been the really important part is just separating my identity from my work because I am so much more than that. I am a really good friend. I'm a really good daughter most of the time. I'm a good partner. Like I love the gym. Like I have all of these other things that are so important to my life, and I would say much more important than work should or ever will be.
Hmm.
The other thing is really surrounding yourself with people who like see you and get you and build you up and pour into you. Have community that pours back into you. Because
Hmm.
when you are in a situation that is fear-based, that is wreaking havoc on your nervous system, burnout comes quickly.
Hmm.
And if you cannot leave, the number one thing I can tell you is burnout is a lot easier to prevent than it is to cure.
Oh, yeah.
If you cannot cure it within the workplace and you cannot prevent it within the workplace, you have to find other outlets that allow you to breathe.
Yeah.
Also, like, get a great therapist. I know that
Yeah.
we shouldn't talk about therapy or work at therapy, but if you have to, you should.
Yeah. Yeah, I think that's one of the things, having 100% been burnt out. What I always try to accentuate for people is, at least based on my experience, and I think this is true from what I've read and as well, burnout takes years. Like, this is not something that you take a 1 week vacation and you're like, I'm good. It takes years to recover from because you have done something to your entire physical body by being in a constant state of stress. So I think, to your point, it's, you have to start putting some of those boundaries in place to protect yourself from that because it can be so devastating. And I think to your point also, it's it is separating identity because especially in the US, if you're out, you're meeting somebody for first, oh, what do you do? Where do you live? It's like, what do you do is one of the top three questions most people are going to ask. What do you do for work, right? That's essentially what they're asking, as though that is like the primary part of your identity that's important. So,
Well, and
um,
it's funny that you say that. So I'm not in the dating world anymore, but I
mm,
was briefly. Terrible experience, let me tell you. It's not great. But that is like the number one thing that people want to talk about on like a first date. And I'm like, please, I talked about this all day because I had to work. Do you have a personality? Could you
yeah,
tell me you have a hobby? What are some things that you like? And most of the time, people come right back to how they earn money
yeah,
or what they immediately do with said money.
right.
And I think that is so indicative of the culture that we live in because even as someone who interviews people, it is almost impossible in an interview to get people to talk about themselves because they always bring it right back to their skill set. And I get it, it's an interview. But you're also a human, right? Like we're also hiring you as a human, you as a person. And I spend a lot of time getting to know you and who you are and what drives you, like what puts your feet on the floor every morning. But because we are so conditioned to believe that like all of our worth sits in our bank accounts,
Mm,
that's like where people go, regardless of the scenario. And for me, that I think even it's been hard to break for me, right? Like I try really hard now to not talk about work unless I'm like trying to like float an idea or get an opinion or be like, can I gut check this? But it's not something that I'm like actively talking about when I'm like out to dinner with my partner or my parents or my friends. Like, actually, if I start talking about work constantly, like just end the dinner, take me home. Take me home.
so you brought up something there that is something I want to talk about because yeah, people they're trained to whatever question you have, like, oh, I don't have any weaknesses. I'm turn the weakness into a strength, and you know what like that is what everyone thinks that they're supposed to do in interviews, and they aren't really meant to talk about themselves. Like that's kind of the thought. What you talk about in your book is about as part of these interviews, a lot of times people are looking at culture fit. And you talk about how that culture fit is exclusionary, it leads to homogeneity. I mean, I cringe when people are like, are we still talking about culture fit? I'm like, ugh. Um, you talk about value add as an alternative. And so I'd love for you to share, what folks could be doing to move away from culture fit and instead think about hiring for value add.
So I think it's like it's a trick, right? Like everyone holds some kind of value. That's my favorite part of this.
Yeah.
Um, Culture fit for me, ironically, is the first talk I ever did before I like got into public speaking. It was the first thing I ever did. I got on stage, didn't prepare a talk, just like winged it. I don't know. Because it is something that I just feel so deeply about because
Mm,
so many of us have experienced it in startup land. You have to come in and you have to break out your golden goose sneakers and your little crop denim and your little denim jacket, and you got to just fit in. And all you're doing is asking people to like also become an actor and actress and do their job. And the thing that you can't do well is two things at the same time. And so either you want people to be really good at what they do and they just show up, or you want them to really like go for gold in their acting career and like
mm,
they're gonna half-ass what you want them to do. Um, but we build better products, better processes, better organizations when everyone's lens is incorporated. And the beautiful thing about that is the world is very big. You never
mm,
get everyone's lens. And so you can always examine your table and say whose lens is not here, who is not represented today, because without them, we have a gap.
mm,
Start looking at things like that. And of course, like nobody wants to work with a brilliant asshole. I get that, right?
yeah.
Um, it's okay to want to work with people who align with your values, but your values can't be like we drink a lot.
Yeah.
We love happy hour. Your values are
Yeah.
things like transparency, compassion, kindness, things that maybe you didn't just pull off ChatGPT that sounded witty,
Mm,
but who am I? For me, that is the key is like it's okay to say like you want certain values emulated within your organization, but make sure that you're talking about those in your interview process. I think one of the things that we do people like a grave disservice is when we treat interviewing like sales. when we sell them all of the like fun, bright, shiny things. So we don't actually
Um,
talk about who we are.
hmm.
Because now they're going to turn over in 6 months. I'm paying to reseat this role. And for what? When I
Yeah.
could have just been like, hey, we really believe that Black Lives Matter and we support women's healthcare and all of these things that like our organization believes in and they're, in our benefits packages there in the things that we talk about. It's okay to say those things because some people will opt out and should, and that is okay. But when you
Hmm.
don't give people the opportunity to opt out, you do them a disservice. And that isn't
Yeah.
about culture fit, that's just about honesty. But when we're thinking about value add, for me, it is constantly examining whose lens and voice do we not have here today, and how can we build better products that better represent our customer base by having more people look
Hmm.
at.
Yeah.
And that for me is really the lens that I view hiring through. And of course, like it's skill set, it's you as a human. But it's not about like, do I want to sit down and have a coffee with you? One of the things I tell hiring managers all the time, and I get a lot of pushback, is you don't have to hire people you like. I actually encourage you to hire people you don't like. Because if
Hmm.
you hire a team you want to like hang out with on Saturday, guess what? They're exactly like you. You hired a friend group,
Yeah.
not a peer group.
Yeah.
And a true peer group challenges you and makes you uncomfortable. It challenges the way that you think about things. That's how we build better products is by having diverse perspectives at the table, not just people who agree with you. And I get it, and we go back to like wanting to hire for, power and money. Like people want yes men. They want people who
Mm.
yes them to death. Well, guess what?
Hmm.
Nobody gets better. Your product doesn't get better. You certainly don't get better when no one tells you that you're wrong.
Yeah. Yeah. So there's one thing, so I agree, especially I liked the idea of like, yeah, you don't hire for likability. This is not, you're hiring people that are going to make the overall company better, the team better, bring something new and different. Um, and you talk about also for people when they're thinking about being authentic or how they show up in the workplace, that they don't have to be likable. And I was like, yes. And then in the back of my mind, I'm also thinking, okay, how much feedback have I gotten about not being likable? Or, kind of veiled in that as a woman, likability is a thing, right? Like if you are perceived as kind of not likable, not nice, there's a penalty really that you experience in the workplace in terms of, pay, promotion, opportunity. So what do you tell people who are trying to navigate being themselves and in environments that may punish them for not being likable?
So the number one thing that I think is important is like when I talk about these things, like for me, the onus is on the organization, right? It
Mm,
is your job to create environments where people get to just exist and be. And so for me, that's also in feedback loops. Being
mm,
likable is not a productive moment of feedback.
yeah.
Feedback should be actionable, and actionability is not like smile more,
Yeah.
look happier. Feedback loop should be rooted in the production of what you do. It should be rooted in KPIs and your skill set. And so that
Hmm.
is where I start because at the end of the day, like you as an individual cannot solve systems that aren't meant to benefit you. And
Yeah.
it's also not your job. And
Yeah.
so for me, it really is the onus of the organization to ensure that people don't have to be on all the time. One of the things that I try to explain really well is like it is impossible to be like happy, smiley, go lucky every day, like authentically. It's just not a
Hmm.
thing. I'm a
Yeah.
Virgo. It's not, you're not going to get that from me. And I think the more that we start to understand that and that people can't be on 100 all the time, because like some days you're going to get my best work and some days you're going to get my worst work and some days you're going to get 100% and some days you're going to get like 47%. And that's
Yeah.
everything across the board. Um,
Yeah.
and some of that comes with personality, right? Like some days I come in, I'm super bubbly, I'm super happy, and some days I'm not.
Hmm.
But organizations have to understand that. It goes back to like, I'm not going to tell people to just up and leave their job because it's
Yeah.
not realistic. I'm also not going to tell people to do things that put their job in danger. Do not do things that risk your safety and security. Because again, the reason we go to work, right? Make money, pay our bills. Make money, pay our bills. So much of this is meant to be understood by managers, to be understood that you yourself have to be willing to incorporate these things into your lives so that you can mirror them. As managers, we are mirrors. In order for me to expect behaviors, I have to display those behaviors. So if I'm a
Hmm.
manager that never take time off, guess what? My team isn't taking time off either. If
Yeah.
I'm a manager who takes time off, but I'm online the whole time, guess what? My whole team is going to be online.
Yeah.
So it is the same in all of these behaviors. If we are not willing to be vulnerable about when we're having bad days, about when we're wrong, about when things are just like meh, we don't give our teams the space to do that either.
Hmm. Yeah, yeah, 100%. I think all of that, when we think about the roles of leadership and the space that they create, it always kind of drives me crazy when companies talk about their culture and then act as though senior leadership has nothing to do with the culture of an organization, or that we aren't just mirroring what they do and what they reward. It's like you've gotten exactly what you set out to get. Like this is the organization. This is how you've set up the culture there and what you've rewarded. Um,
Are you tired of talent and HR podcasts that sound like corporate training videos? Same. Talentless is the no fluff show about hiring, leadership, culture, and what's actually going on in the world of work. Talentless is a podcast for recruiters by recruiters. Hosted by Desiree Goldie and Ashley King, they're smart, occasionally salty, and never afraid to say what everyone else is thinking. Listen wherever you get your podcasts and subscribe at talentlesspodcast.com.
One of the things you talk about also is about joy and leading with joy, experiencing joy. What you said, and this is a quote from the book because I really like this. You said, "Your joy is not a betrayal of how ugly reality can be. It is an act of defiance against the inhumanity that exists. Choosing to let happiness, laughter, and love in doesn't mean you're ignoring the pain of the world around you. It means you're refusing to let it eat you alive." And then you also go on to say that we are made to feel like joy has to be earned. I think this really resonated with me because I feel like that there is, I don't know, a societal narrative, some kind of a narrative about needing to struggle or endure to be able to enjoy things, to have joy, or that you need to tamp it down. And it feels like, especially in the times that we're living in, we need to anchor ourselves in some joy and some small experiences of joy, or it's people are going to spiral. They're going to be in despair. So I'd love for you to talk more about that and about the reasons, particularly for leaders, it's important to lead with joy and to show joy within their teams.
So it's interesting because I obviously didn't write this book this year. It came out this year. Um, and I really tested that I was tested myself for that this year.
Mm,
This was the kind of year like I cried till I threw up in my hands kind of thing.
mm,
Um, and so then for me, but it was like I was doing that and then I was going out and I was having like the best nights with my friends or the best nights with my family. And the duality is really remarkable about
mhm.
how humans exist, but I needed that joy not to take away from the sadness or the heartbreak, but because like I still deserve to experience it. And in like a little bit more personal, like I think I mentioned I'm dating someone. I think they're lovely. They're wonderful. Like they're just like the best human. But I've gotten like feedback that people like, I can't believe that you're not like just still sad. And I'm like, why? Why? Why do you want me to still be sad?
Right. Yeah.
I understand like that's a normal thing. And I am one of those people who like I don't really talk about situations until I've processed them. So like if you're hearing about something sad that's happened in my life, it happened like a bit ago, and we're just getting the words out now.
Yeah.
But it was almost like that people were disappointed that I was happy or disappointed that I found some joy. And I think that's a really interesting parasocial thing. Like again, people think that they have innate, opinions on your life because they see it on the internet. But I do think that there is this like expectation that people should be heartbroken, sad, whatever it is for longer than we are. And when we find joy, it is inauthentic to that sadness.
Mm-hmm.
Although it doesn't invalidate it, right? Like I was still very much I was a saddie, a sad girl. Um, and so when I think about that in terms of leadership, the world is so messy right now. And regardless of the company that you're in, like from an economic perspective, things are like pretty up in the air.
Yeah.
I think if you come to work as a leader with that fear, you don't empower your teams to work harder, better, faster. You scare them. You
Yeah.
make them nervous. And it is really hard to do your best work when you're scared, when you are suspended in fight or flight because your nervous system is engaged. When we can find moments of joy in dark places, I think that's when we build trust. That's when we build community. That is when we build bonds. And so much of what makes a good culture is when you trust your leader. And trusting a leader comes with two sides, right? Like they can find joy in small moments, but they can also be vulnerable when things are icky.
Mm,
But here's how we're going to get through the ick. And how we're going to get through the ick is with joy. And I'm not saying joy like put on fake smiles or throw me a pizza party, but it is just like honoring the fact that like we're all human and we're all worthy and we all have innate value that we add regardless of what is going on or our ability to perform because none of that is rooted in who we are.
hmm
Me, that's really important. And again, like not every day is going to be like a great, fun, happy day. But as a leader, I think it's really important to lead your team in a way that feels hopeful
hmm
because it is really easy to feel not hopeful in the
hmm
world that we are in currently today.
Yeah. Yeah, I think we were talking about this in a previous episode of, how how to lead in the times that we're in where things are so uncertain. And some of it really comes down to like a leader can only control what they can control, right? Like they can't control senior leadership, they can't control what's happening, out in the world, but they can essentially do their best to like recognize and see where people are at, try to create, a psychologically safe environment, be as transparent as they can. Like, hey, I'm gonna tell you what I know to the best of my knowledge. And, we all may be laid off tomorrow. Like, I don't know that either, right? But really just kind of being as, maybe they don't want to say that part, but like they be as transparent as possible with people. That at least allows people to come in and have a little bit of like a safe space to operate in with and not experience that kind of distrust or fear when they're within the work environment. And it makes me also think, just like from more personal perspective, it's funny, with some of my friends, I think maybe we have like dark senses of humor, but like we have to laugh at terrible things sometimes because otherwise, like if you aren't laughing in moments of like sadness or weirdness or whatever, then you just go down the rabbit hole with things.
Yep. Hmm.
So, yes, dark sense of humor is always appreciated for me.
You just gotta sometimes you just gotta like giggle your way through it. Like there's like a trend on TikTok right now. It's like you just have to like read your husband or your friend's text and move on. And that is like literally how I feel about the world around me. Like sometimes you just gotta giggle and move on. You gotta just like look at the news, have a little chuckle, and be like, wow, another unprecedented event, and move on. Uh,
Yeah.
the other thing that I think is really important about going back to like how leaders lead, and I think you mentioned it, like talking about the things, I think it's really important to name the feeling in the room. Um,
Mm,
none of us benefit by avoiding it. And I think that is really important when it comes to not necessarily just work things, but like what is going on in the world around us. As a leader, I think it's really important to know that, like, yeah, your job is KPIs and performance, but actually, your job is humans. Your
yeah.
job is
Yeah.
humans. You fundamentally have to care about the humans you lead. And that means understanding that the things that happen in the world around us impact the humans that you lead.
Yeah.
And, I think one of the things that we really don't do well in business is like naming that. Like,
Mm,
for me, I think one of the first times I really realized I was burned out was like around the George Floyd thing, and nobody knew how to talk about it.
mm,
Nobody knew how to talk about it. Like I got on a call January 7th and nobody mentioned that the world was on fire. And I was like, is somebody gonna, are we gonna say something? I don't know. We all just watched very weird things on the TV, but we're not gonna say anything. Okay, cool. It doesn't benefit us to not say something when our teams are feeling a type of way about a certain situation, about like things like COVID. And then I think there's the other piece, right? Like sometimes there are things that are more macro, right? Like it is the entire world experiencing it at the same time, like COVID. We all got to
mm,
get scared all together. But remembering that the life of all of our team members are messy, and many of us are experiencing things like that on the micro level. So whether it is a divorce, a sick parent, drug addiction, messy whatever, health issues, all of that impacts how we show up. And if we don't give our teams the space to talk about it if and when they want to, it doesn't help them to harbor it. And then we don't understand their performance. We don't understand why they're not showing up the way they normally do because we haven't given them the space to tell us why they're showing up that way. And I think that is a really important space to create as a leader. And not everyone is going to come and tell you those things, But some people will. And it may not be in like great detail, but it may just be like, hey, I have personal stuff going on right now. Can you support me?
Yeah.
I um I had a leader this year when I was going through like the messiness, and I think she said something to me that like I think what she said to me made me cry more than I was crying. But she said to me, she was like, I know that you're really strong and you feel like you have to hold this alone, but know that I can hold this with you.
Mm,
And that to me was like the most meaningful thing a leader has ever said to me, like in the course of my like pretty long career at this point. But it is that easy to know
yeah.
that when you lead humans, sometimes you have to hold stuff with them.
Yeah. Yeah. That would have made me cry more too.
I was like, oh my God, I have to turn off my camera.
Oh, all right. Well, I want to wrap up with some toots and boots. So, you're a published author, a
Hmm.
bestseller. Uh, Through this experience of writing the book, publishing it, you said you had kind of already written it, and then you have all this other stuff that have happened in your life since the book has been published. You're hearing people's responses to what they've been reading. What's been toot worthy? What's been boot worthy about this whole experience for you?
Ooh, I don't know if I would go the traditional publishing route
Mm,
again.
okay.
Maybe like an indie publisher, and not for any experience that I had, but just like how you're allowed to speak and talk in the book. Like I think I had to leave a lot of stuff out that was impactful to me, and I think impactful to the
Mm,
book. Just because again, like maybe it would have ruffled some feathers, but I
mm.
myself am a ruffler of feathers.
Yeah.
Um, I don't know if I would have released a book right now in 2025 when the world is on fire. Like maybe I would have done this like, I don't know, 5 years ago. Um, Hindsight is 2020. But overall, like it for me feels like an accomplishment because now I get to tell my mom my English degree mattered. So no, that's big. Um, but for me, I always said that like I wanted to get the words out of my head and into a book. I am already plotting and writing my second book, which I'm very excited about. But for me, there's nothing that I would say like, oh, I wouldn't do this again. 60,000 words is a lot of words. I would have prepared myself better for that part. Uh, but overwhelming, like it really was a good experience. And also like really surreal to see your book in a Barnes and Noble. So
Yeah. Well, that's amazing. I'm glad, like I said, I recommend people grab a copy of the book. I think that like I said, within it, I pulled out the things that were resonant to me and the things I wanted to talk about today. But I feel like anyone who picks it up is going to find different things that resonate with them, different things that they can take away and apply. So I encourage folks to get it. Oh, wait, I think this is also, boop, I think that's it right there.
yeah, I think so too. I like that
So it's
your
on the
books are
shelf.
color coded.
Yes, and it's easier to find because it's color coded. It's blue. Which makes sense. Of course it's blue.
On
I
brand.
just realized that. Okay. Well, thank you so much for joining. I want to give you an opportunity to tell folks, how they can follow you, where they can contact you, where they can get the book, any of the things that you want to promote right now.
Yeah, so you can find me on LinkedIn, Madison Butler, blue hair, easy to find. But I am also on Instagram at Madison Designs Work if you want my corporate account. But if you want my like slightly more unhinged, more gym content, it's Madison Amelia B on both Instagram and TikTok. Um, but I'm always open to conversation. If you have any questions about the book, questions about what it means to, show up as you or create environments where people can do that, I'm always happy to be a resource.
Awesome. Well, thank you so, so much for taking the time to chat with me today.
Well, thank you, and apologies from the dogs running around. It was unplanned. But
No
again,
worries.
like just speaks to like it's messy. It's messy.
All right, awesome. And thanks everyone for joining.
Bye.